a few of my students came to me and they asked one simple question. It's like, what does his day-to-day as the leader of opposition look like? So can you tell them what exactly do you do in that role?
Yeah, first, thank you very much for coming here. It's an honor for me to come, and lovely to see so many people from back home, so many students. See, opposition, at its heart, is the voice of people. So, if you have parliament, of course, there's a whole sequence of events that go on. But what you're generally thinking about is where and how can I raise issues of the people of India? And you're thinking from a individual perspective, and you're also thinking from a group perspective. You're thinking from a industry perspective, you're thinking from a farmer perspective, and the important thing is that you do it sensitively and after listening and understanding carefully. So very often, you see an issue in the beginning. When you're new to politics, you see an issue and you're like, oh, that's what the issue is. But when you go into a little bit of detail, you realize that there is nuance and complexity. So understanding that nuance and then planning your day according to that, that's how it generally works. Parliament, of course, you go there in the morning and then it's like a war. You go in and then you fight. It's a pleasant war. It's reasonably fun at times. It can get nasty also, but it's a war of ideas, war of words, and we are trying to put our point of view across, and the government is trying to suppress our point of view. So that's how that works. And then there are a lot of people who come and see you, different types of people, party people, business people, farmers, these type of delegations. So you're constantly listening to what they're saying.
So you just mentioned that you look at issues in a certain way differently. Now, thinking about your career as a politician, the first time you got elected and this time, has there been a change in the way you look at these issues and your mind thinks differently about how to go about them?
Quite differently. Now, I'm coming to the conclusion that listening is much more important than speaking, right? And listening doesn't just mean that I come there and I listen to you. That's not listening. That, somebody, you're talking to me and I'm looking at you and I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm not listening. Listening is a completely different thing. Listening is putting myself in your position. So if you're a farmer, going into the person's life, going into the person's day-to-day life, and then understanding what he's trying to tell you. So listening is fundamental. And then understanding the deeper dynamics. So you then are not just swimming around on the surface, you're raising fundamental issues, and you don't go raising every single issue. You focus clearly and you're like, okay, this is important, I got to raise this. This is something important, I got to fight for this. This is something important, I got to fight. So you choose your battles much more carefully.
I think you hit it on the head, that prioritization.
So, very good definition of political strategy or business strategy. Understand clearly what you don't want to do. So don't sit there doing 50, 100 different things. Understand clearly, जो नहीं करना है, उसको पहले समझो, परे कर दो. And then उसमें से 3-4 चीजें निकलेंगी, and then that's what you got to focus on.
Well, I think back to the students, that's what we talk about. So this time you're hearing from Mr. Gandhi himself about prioritization. Now, a few things that you mentioned just takes me back a few months. A very unprecedented event happened in terms of the Yatra. Personally, for me, a 30-minute walk on the treadmill, you can see 4,000 kilometers and connecting with people in a very different way. How has that changed your perception about people, and how has it helped you connect with people differently?
See, the first question to ask is, why were we walking 4,000 kilometers? Right? It's what created the need for us to do this? And the reason is that all avenues of communication in India were shut. Every single avenue, no matter what we did, it was all shut. We spoke in Parliament, that's not televised. We go to the media, they don't pick up what we say. We even go with documents to the legal system, nothing happens. So all our avenues were shut. And for a long time, we literally couldn't understand how to communicate. And then suddenly we hit upon the idea कि भाई अगर मीडिया आपको लोगों के पास नहीं ले जा रहा, इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम आपको लोगों के पास नहीं ले जा रहा, तो फिर डायरेक्टली चले जाओ. And then what better way to go directly than to literally go walking across the country? And so that's what we did. And I must tell you, in the beginning itself, I had a little bit of a knee problem. So 3-4 days into it, I was like, "Ye kya kar diya?" I was like, because you get up in the morning, I go running. And so you get up in the morning and you say, "Okay, I'm going to go run 10 kilometers. And they're like, "Okay." And then you get up in the morning and you say, "I've got to walk 4,000. It's a completely different paradigm. So there was moments of that, okay, this is quite a big thing. But it went surprisingly easy. It was not difficult at all. And it fundamentally changed the way I think about my work. I would say that it completely changed how I view politics, how I view our people, how I communicate with our people, how I listen to people, and not just me. There were many people involved in the Yatra, and all of us. And to me, the most powerful thing that happened organically on its own, we didn't actually do it, it just happened, was that we introduced, certainly for the first time in India, possibly for the first time in many, many countries, the idea of love in politics. And this seems strange, it's a strange thing, because you look at the political discourse in most countries, and you will never find the word love in that discourse. It just doesn't exist anywhere. You'll find hatred, you'll find anger, you'll find unfairness, you'll find corruption, you'll find all these words. But you will never find the word love in the language. And the Bharat Jodo Yatra actually introduced that idea into the Indian political system. And it has amazed me how that idea has worked.
So now when you reflect on the Yatra, you think about some of the key moments that happened. Is there any like an aha moment that you want to share with us that you never expected it to happen, but it happened in a positive?
I'll tell you what I realized. And many of you people who are in business school and other public facing spaces, I realized that actually when I was in the Yatra, the Yatra was speaking on its own. So I realized that I was there, but pretty much everything that was coming out of my mouth was actually coming from the Yatra, not for me. Right? So there was thousands of people, they were telling me things, it was going, I was listening to them, they were telling me things, and then their words were coming out of my mouth. So I was not communicating as Rahul. I was communicating as the Yatra was communicating. And it took me a little while to figure this out, because first I was like, oh, I'm giving a speech and I have this idea and I'm going to say this. But then suddenly it started to occur to me that every single thing coming out of my mouth is actually things people have said to me. And the most beautiful example of this was this slogan that came, which is "Nafrat ke bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan khol rahe ho," right? Now you're clapping, but the slogan did not come. It was not my slogan, right? It was not even a slogan of the organizers. It was a guy who came. I saw him, and he was walking with us, and there was a rope which used to surround us, and he was trying to come in, and he couldn't come in. The police would beat him. So I saw him once there, then I saw him somewhere else. And then I told Alankar, who's standing there, I said, "Dekho, usko le aao." So anyway, Alankar went looking for him, he had disappeared. Then after some time he came out, he charged through the police, and then he pointed at me like that. And he said, "मैं जानता हूँ आप क्या कर रहे हो, मैं जानता हूँ आप क्या कर रहे हो." So I said, "क्या कर रहा हूँ?" He said, "आप नफरत के बाजार में मोहब्बत की दुकान खोल रहे हो." Right? So then I realized that this is not me. This is the sentiment of the crowd that is speaking. And so that would happen again and again. It would happen sometime. Once it happened when a woman came up to me, held my hand, is walking, and I could feel that something was wrong with the way she was holding my hand. So I said, "क्या हुआ?" She said, "वो मुझे मार रहा है." I said, "कौन मार रहा है?" He said, "मेरा पति मार रहा है." तो I said, "मतलब?" She said, "नहीं, वो अभी मुझे मार रहा था, मैं भाग के आई हूं." So I said, "तो क्या करूं?" तो I said, "पुलिस वालों को बताएं?" She said, नहीं, पुलिस वालों को मत बताओ." I said, "क्यों?" She said, "और मारेगा." Now, that's a sentiment of thousands and thousands. I realize that's a sentiment of thousands and thousands of women. That they're being mistreated, they're being treated violently, but they can't say anything. It's hidden. Right? So now when I'm speaking to you right now, I'm saying these things to you, it's not me. It's that girl who's saying it to you. I just transmitted it. So that's the job, in my view, of a politician, is to listen to sentiment, to understand sentiment deeply, and then to give it to other people, right? Like I can see the faces here of the women versus the men. And when I'm saying that, I can see the faces of the women are different. They're reacting completely differently to what I said because they're understanding that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I've been through that before," right? So that's the idea. The idea is not that Rahul Gandhi has some fantastic vision for the country and now he's going to project the vision to the country. The idea is, what is the country saying? What is the country feeling? Right? So in our system, I always used to wonder why this idea of sort of annihilation of the person. You know, if you look at Mahatma Gandhi, you see him in a sense destroying himself. You know, when he's in university, if you see his pictures, they're very nice suit, very nice hair combed, and then slowly you start to see that those things start to fall away. His clothes fall away, his fancy suits fall away, everything falls away. So there's a sort of almost a destruction of the person taking place. And you can see this in many of our leaders. And the reason it's happening is because the person is actually dying and the voice of other people is taking over, right? I don't know, I'll give you an example. Do you know what devta means in the term devta? Do you know what it means?
Yes.
No. No, it doesn't mean God.
The deity.
No, it doesn't mean the deity. So devta in India actually means a person whose internal feelings are exactly the same as his external expression. Meaning he's a completely transparent being. Right? It does not mean God. So if this person tells me every single thing that he believes or he thinks, and he tells it to me, that's the definition of Devta. Right? It's the idea that you destroy yourself. Right? So to me, that is interesting about our politics. How do you suppress your own ideas, right? How do you suppress your own fear, or how do you suppress your own greed, or how do you suppress your own ambition and absorb other people's fear, other people's ambition?
I think before we go to the next question, this needs a big round of applause. So we just
If you look at our big leaders, and historically, and you can see extreme, so you can see a Buddha who's extreme. You can see Bhagwan Ram, same thing. You can see Mahatma Gandhi. The basic idea is the destruction of the identity. The basic idea is the destruction. The basic idea is the destruction of the self, right? And listening to what others are saying. So to me, that's Indian politics. That's the heart of Indian politics, and that's what an Indian leader is. That's how an Indian leader is different than, say, an American leader. An American leader will say to you, listen, we got to go there. I'm going to take you there. Promised land, let's go. Indian leader attacks himself. Gandhi essentially attacked himself. Totally different concept. In some words, in some ways, Bharat Jodo Yatra was an attack on myself. 4,000 kilometers chalna hai, risk hai, goli lag sakti hai, chodo. Let's see what happens. So then that generates a completely different way of thinking and a completely different relationship with people. You know? Idea of Shiva, basically. When they say Shiva is the destroyer, what is he destroying? Himself. That's the idea. Right? He's destroying his ego, he's destroying his structure, he's destroying his beliefs. So Indian political thought, Indian political action is all going inwards. But I mean, I think we might be getting too philosophical. So a good scientist is also that.
I agree.
Or a good engineer is that. Good yogi is that. In fact, if you're good at pretty much anything, you are destroying yourself in some way.
I need a pause for that. One of the important threads in this fabric that we talk about is the youth, and they have a very strong role to play. And especially when you look at US and India, and I see all the students that come in, one of the greatest joys for us here is to work with our students. They just energize us beyond limits. More than 300,000 of them are in the US. About 4,000 of them from India are here at UTD. Where do you see them playing a role in the large scheme of things that India is poised towards? These ambassadors who are sitting here, and of course there are some who have come before and are doing great things here in the US.
In one way, there you are a bridge between the rest of the world and India. So you have ideas and values that you bring to the United States. And often those ideas and values might not be understood so easily in the United States, right? There's a different cultural ethos, different cultural system here. But your ideas are as valuable as anybody else's. In the same way, they also have a culture, an ethos here. Today I met some young guys just before I came here who came to the United States, not students, but people who, driving trucks and stuff like that. And they were saying to me, look, I said, what do you like about the United States? And they said that what we love about the United States is the idea of equality. That a truck driver in the United States gets respect. And as a truck driver in India, there's no way I could get respect, right? Equality is a very powerful idea. And it's an idea that can help India in huge ways. So if you take back the idea of equality, take back the idea of fairness, that's a very powerful thing. So I think you should see yourself as a bridge. And the other thing is, what I've noticed in my life is that individuals can do huge things. And often it's individuals who you don't expect are going to do big things that do it. So system will say to you, university might say to you, these are the best students. And you'll find that actually the guy who's going to make change is sitting somewhere else in the back. And the university has a way of, making that person feel uncomfortable and said, you're not doing well, your grades are not, you're not getting a 4.0. And then suddenly you find the guy who's not doing so well has done much better in life because he's into the habit of questioning things, asking himself, why is it like this and not like that? And sometimes institutions don't react well to that. If they see you always asking questions, they might say, yeah, disturb kar raha hai isko, chup karo, piche beto, piche bhejo. So that idea of questioning, that idea of resistance, that idea of being a little disruptive, disturbing a little bit, this is a very powerful idea. I use it in my work also. The idea of creating a disturbance. The Bharat Jodo Yatra was a disturbance. Politics is going on like this, let's disturb it. We don't like the way it's going on. We want to do it like this. So I think that's powerful. If you understand the culture you're operating in, understand your culture, and then have this sense of, how can I do something to bridge it? How can I do something to disturb it? It's powerful.
Talking about the same youth, I think the life of anybody who's young and is in some, like their 20s, the life is like a soap opera. Every day there is a new challenge. There is something that is...
It's the life of somebody who's in his 50s, 60s, 70s. The soap opera continues. It's not that the soap opera stops at 30, yeah? Let me tell you. In fact, in many ways, the soap opera becomes much more dramatic later. Multiple soap operas start up.
But, so they have concerns. They have concerns about doing well in life. They're starting off maybe a professional career. They have questions about whether they'll do well or not. Employment also happens to be a key area and I feel across the world right now, the youth is kind of rippling through that, a phase where there are questions about where they will land professionally from an employment perspective. So when we connect any sentence which has the word youth and employment in the same sentence, it's a cause of worry at a lot of places at a lot of different levels. What do you have to say about employment and our youth?
See, first of all, let's be clear. Not everywhere on the planet has an employment problem. Okay? The West has an employment problem. India has an employment problem. But there are many countries in the world that don't really have an employment problem. China certainly doesn't have an employment problem. Vietnam doesn't have an employment problem. So there are places on the planet that are not struggling with unemployment. There's a reason. If you look at the United States in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, they were the center of global production. Anything that was made, cars, washing machines, TVs, all made in the United States. Production moved from the United States. It went to Korea, it went to Japan, eventually it went to China. And if you look today, China is dominating global production. You go to India, you look at the phones, you look at the furniture, you look at clothes, you see on the back, made in China. That's a fact, right? So what has happened? The West, America, Europe, India have given up on the idea of production and they've handed it to China. The act of production creates jobs. What we do, what the Americans do, what the West does, is we organize consumption. Okay? Uber is organizing consumption. Okay? Foxconn is organizing production. Mahindra organizes production. Bajaj organizes production. These are the guys who create